Yo, thank you for tuning into the Full Circle Podcast. Look, the whole reason we even do this is to help people discover belonging in Jesus. So look, we want to help you discover identity in Christ and then walk in purpose and power in him as well. So look, do us a favor, like, share, subscribe, turn on the post notifications, and tune in for a fire episode.
I believe, I'ma make it. I believe, I'ma make it. I believe, I'ma make it. I believe. Regardless how it seems, we don't never quit. They told me give up on your dreams, but I ain't convinced. I stay committed, it might even take a minute, but hey, this is all we ever wanted, so it's worth the wait. Gotta keep the faith. Sacrificing is more than starting a hobby. I'm doing this from my soul. Nowadays, you can find me sticking to the game plan. Clock's ticking, Steph Curry. Boy, you know I gotta take my shot. I ain't worried about the...
Welcome back to episode 5 of season 3 of the Full Circle Podcast.
Let's go.
Come on, my name is Joe Jackson Jr. I'm your host, and I got some cool people with me. We got a new friend today. We got a new friend. And Amahd, I want you to do the honors. I want you to tell our folks about our friend.
Yeah. Well, he is the amazing, the fantastic, the stupendous Derek Reeves.
Come
y'all.
on.
Listen, no, but for real though, let me tell y'all. One, Derek is probably one of the most extroverted people that I've ever met. Because we met in a coffee shop.
Come on.
And we literally talked for probably like an hour, just randomly. And then we were able to connect and just started, talking about church and God and ministry and just somewhere along the lines. And he started telling me about something really cool that he's a part of, part of the collegiate division of FCA.
Come on.
And so, man, it's been a blessing to like really see you be a part of that ministry, to see the fruit that you have from that ministry, the blessing that you are to the athletes in that ministry. And so I had to, extend the invite your way. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. I didn't, well, for one, thank you. That's very kind. I didn't have this on my weekend calendar originally, but I'm grateful to be here and lucky to be on the Full Circle Pod. And I love that you guys are taking an opportunity to dive into these deep biblical concepts, putting them on the platform. Like, we need more of this stuff out there, not more of the stuff that's not edifying to the people or building the people up, but the stuff that gets to the root of why we're here. So
yeah,
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and honestly, like, Derek is our first guest. And it's so great to have you on the show. I know that everybody watching just wants to hear a little bit about you, man. So kind of tell us where you're at right now, where you're serving in ministry, and just kind of how God has brought you to that place.
Gotcha. Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, and sports and just growing up in Christian home has been my life. But really, I mean, God took a hold of my heart in college. And really, I think as I moved out to Jacksonville, I moved here in 2018 to pursue a marketing opportunity. But quickly, God kind of showed me that I was going to be moving into ministry, which wasn't a part of my personal plan. And so Fellowship of Christian Athletes has always been a piece of who I am. Always wanted to be the Christian athlete, got to play football in college. Yeah. And so now get an opportunity to work for them and that organization as the director of college ministry for Northeast Florida. So I work with UNF, JU, Edward Waters, Trinity Baptist College, Flagler, and then,
Fins up.
And then FSCJ is another campus we're trying to break ground on right now too. So like I said, wasn't a part of my plan, but man, did God make it very clear that this is where He needed me to serve, and I love getting a chance to do it because it gets I get an opportunity to work with the people that I really understand really well. Yeah. But also I get a chance to invite people who have this sports experience or this college athletics background and invite them into this discipling opportunity because there are too many kids for me to have a discipling relationship with. And so to invite some people into it to take part in what we're doing is super special to me. I love community. Yeah. And I love being a part of growing communities too. So that's been me. I go to the Church of 1122. and have just created a really rich community of people that are from all over the country, all over the world even. And all of us working together to build a better Jacksonville has been something that's taught me a lot about myself and about God. So
come on, shout out 1122.
I've been checking out some other churches around the area, as well. Just as somebody who works in this ministry, like, FCA does not have an allegiance to a church. We're here to push people to the church and his church as well. So the body as well as the physical church. So I've got to have a relationship with many pastors because there's college students with all kinds of backgrounds, all types of experiences that, they may not like an 1122, but they may love, another local church that's really good for them. So learning more about what's going on. So it's fun to be talking with some pastors because I'm not one, but we do all work in ministry. So
come on,
let's do it. Yeah,
I love that, man. When I was at Carolina, AIA, Athletes in Action, FCA were really big there, and for like many athletes, like they learn faith through I learned faith through football. Like there were moments where I couldn't tell you Peter from Paul, but God was teaching me His heart, His characteristics through the sport I was playing. And when I came to read it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the truth. So that's so cool, man. And even so I spent the past 2.5 years of my life in Minneapolis, where FCA was huge. And it was kind of like the bread and butter of the area. So coming back to Jacksonville and kind of seeing in some spaces where, okay, well, we do need some help, and seeing you step into that space on a collegiate level and just kill it. Amahd, me and him have been friends for a while, and we're pretty tight, and I trust his discernment, his wisdom, and just kind of hearing his heart about just you and how well you've done with this city and with, these young athletes, especially as we start talking about this conversation of, biblical masculinity and godly manhood. Like, these are young men and women who don't even realize the potential that they have sometimes, don't even realize the impact that God is. Like, Jesus was using teenagers to change the world. And a lot of times, it takes someone tapping them on the shoulder and saying, hey, he chose you. It's time. So it's cool to see, you doing that with men and women, man, and just your openness to come on the show and talk with us. I know we're kind of talking dating, bro. Like, this is, we about to hit a good one.
This is a dating episode. Fun stuff. Yeah.
We about to hit a good one, man. I just want you to lead us off and just kind of, open us up with that bad boy, just dating and the world of biblical masculinity and godly manhood, and how is it that we even begin to interact with that through what we've seen and experienced in our own lives?
Yeah. I think I'll start by this, man. Whether we realize it or not, the Bible doesn't really give us too many answers about dating specifically, since this term of dating, what we call in our Western culture, it wasn't something that existed during the times of Jesus or the apostles, and really more so they were arranged marriages, and families would kind of leverage one person's resources or one person's family, or hey, like if your son is willing to work X amount of years for my daughter, then so that's how it works. So basically what I'm saying is that the Bible doesn't really give us specific context towards dating. And I really do feel like for men of God, especially single men of God, trying to navigate the world, even women of God, trying to navigate the world of dating and how we do that in this time, and how do we do that, and what's appropriate, or maybe discussing boundaries. Like, I feel like there's so much gray area sometimes in the world of dating, because the Bible doesn't talk to it specifically. What I am encouraged about is that the Bible does give us a lot of context towards relationships and how we should treat one another. And so I do think that is an important foundation as we talk through, like, okay, what does it look like in dating, and how should we, like, maybe there's a new believer out there, or somebody who is trying to change how they've done dating in the past, and we want to have a conversation to just kind of help with your, help you make better decisions and help you make the right decision.
Yeah, come on.
Inevitably, and I would love to, I'm married, but I would love to kind of talk through some things of like my season of dating that I felt like helped, and some things that I was just like, what, we could have probably did better on. And hopefully at the other end of this, like, we can help some people in their relationships as they're dating and finding their spouse or whatever the case could be.
Come on. And I love it, because outside of like us choosing a relationship with Jesus, this is one of the most pivotal ones that you're going to pick in your life.
Spouse.
And I feel like a lot of times we're picking wrong, and we're picking off of the wrong things and off of what I feel and what I see and what I hope and just how do we get more grounded in our approach with God through his word? And, Derek, we just kind of want to hear from you, man, just like your life as a single man. How old are you now, Derek?
28.
Come on. I love it. I love it. I'm right there with you, man. So I just turned 30 in January.
Gotcha.
And, man, I just want to hear just like your season, man, of singleness and how God has walked you through that. What have been some of the challenges of it, man? What's kind of been your take so far?
I think you talk to most men in the 28 position and talk about singleness, most of them are probably going to say, I didn't choose it. I didn't choose it. And, I would say it's a tough one because I think what you're hitting at is you got to get away from the emotional. And you said it too, like the I want.
Yeah.
You got to stay away from the I want. I listened to, you guys know Vadi Bakum? Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's got a biblical manhood sermon that is just probably the most popular on biblical manhood.
Yeah, it's got a lot.
And he'll tear you up. Yeah. I mean, I'm talking tear you up because he goes on to the dating thing where it's like the Bible says nothing about dating, but then he talks about Paul talking about his gift of singleness. But if you are unable to be alone or have self-control as alone, then get married, very specifically. So I would say, mine is kind of seeking God, like seeking God is the priority and waiting for him to provide in that sense. But our hands are not idle in the waiting season. So I'm going to continue to serve until he blesses that. And as there's, opportunities to date or to explore like a gift that he's giving as far as dating goes, then I think I'll know that it's in front of me when it's there. So, but yeah, I don't know. I would say that's something that I'm exploring and searching myself is like how in the world of dating, how active should I be in dating and searching for dates, asking on dates? Because I'm a pretty content individual in myself. Yeah. But that's also a couple things come from that pride. My independent nature, which is kind of still pride, saying I don't need these things to be content, but understanding that like man should not be alone, as like God said in the very beginning of creation. So waiting for the helper. Yeah. In the female sense, not in the. I got the Spirit with me, and He's helping too. But yeah, I don't know. A lot of searching right now because and waiting and continuing to serve God until He clearly identifies like, hey, this is the person I want you to go on a journey with. Yeah. And see that. So I've been in a couple relationships in the past, and those all have their own kind of story and whatnot. But I would say this season right now is being all right. I'm 28. I'm ready for that. But what is it going to look like for me to continue to choose God over how I feel, over what I want? Come on. And He's going to provide what I need. So being very content in that truth more than getting desperate or getting tired of waiting or whatever it is, and then you just choose something that's available. Yeah. There's an opportunity to persevere through the dating season as well, because God is wanting our obedience and wanting our attention more than we're spending it on, the types of females or even the types of men that females may be pursuing and things like that. So
yeah, I love that. And that's so powerful. Like I hear you saying contentment over and over, and that is the challenge of like I think the Christian man is how do I wait well? How do I remain content in Christ alone? Because we're living in a culture that has been disrupted and indoctrinated with carbon copies of what a relationship is supposed to be like and what it's supposed to provide. And, it has embraced this this theology, if you would, of me first, which is the complete opposite of what Christ has called us to, man. And I think the challenge of the man is how do I become content with God cutting on me in my singleness and believing in the midst of the pain or the trials and the wants to stay here while He develops me to be the man that He's called me to be, man. So I love that. I think that's so powerful because when I think about my own walk, man, so I'm 30, just turned 30, and I didn't imagine that I would be single at 30. Right. It's been a challenge to wait. And I think over the years, man, especially as you experience, trials, pains, but disappointments, it can become very challenging not to deviate. And I believe that for many men, the enemy brings that or tries to highlight that in different ways to get us to disconnect and to deviate. But I believe, like what we're kind of saying in the outset of this thing is like, all right, if you're gonna allow God to show you who your partner is, the first thing you're gonna need, Brother Bear, is some contentment.
Yeah.
You mentioned yourself being 30, and just to kind of throw some stats like this way, like I don't actually have the specific numbers, but the data shows us that like 30 specifically, or even just kind of one of those every 10 years, the rise of depression, the thoughts of, this is more specifically, people start thinking about death more. Yeah. They start thinking about loneliness more. They start thinking about isolation. They start giving up on their dreams. Like there's data to show that people start to retreat from what they were wanting to accomplish, or that, they thought that they would have this by now. And so whenever you kind of see that number come up, it's just a number.
Yeah.
But it does bring this baggage onto a person that they may kind of forget the pursuit of God. They may forget the pursuit of bringing goodness to the earth and things like that. So nothing to be scared of, but it is like, it's just what the data shows of people and their human nature.
And I think we've touched on that, in a way in previous episodes, because I do think that, that number specifically, and just with getting older, I do believe that many people have placed a kind of standard in life that by the time I'm this age, I should have this, or I should have these accolades or these accomplishments or these type of resources by the time that I'm this age. And really, I feel like that more so falls into the cultural category versus the kingdom category. Yeah. And so a lot of people have based these kind of milestones for their life, for their age, based off of culture. And what's important is for us to realize is that, man, like we set our mind on heavenly things, not things on earth.
Come on.
And so, I do believe that maybe a lot of reasons why, some statistics may lead that way. And trust me, I've encountered a number of people. I remember like I had a family member, I was kind of talking to him about something. He was like, well, yeah, as long as you figure it out by 30, you'll be all right. I'm like, bro, I'm 29. What are you talking about?
I'm so there now.
But that's a cultural thing. And really, man, like as men of God, I think I'm glad that you brought that up, because as men of God, we really have to continue to fight to keep our mind kingdom focused, or we will be discouraged by the things that that culture is telling us that we should be, or we should provide, or we should have by a set age, or whatever the case is. And so it's important to stay kingdom focused, to not fall into that cultural narrative.
Come on, man. I love that, bro. I love that. That is the challenge, is the narrative. Like, that is the concept of like the enemy, is these lies that have been spewed to us. And, sometimes they come through, I guess, sources that we can more readily discern. And sometimes it's mom and it's grandma trying to encourage you, but this ain't the way. Mm-hmm. This isn't. Maybe that's what you did in the 70s or the 80s. Yeah. But that ain't what Jesus is talking. He told me to wait on the Lord. Yeah. And right now that feels, again, like a crucifixion. Like, that feels like my flesh is dying. Like, I was reading earlier, man, Galatians. It was the verse of the day. I think it was Galatians 5:24, and it was talking about those who belong to the Lord. Like, they crucify their flesh with its passions and its desires. Mm-hmm. And that is a part of this weight. Like, if we're talking about mirroring Christ and a marriage that mirrors him and his bride, that means inevitably we're going to experience a crucifixion as we process to our. So, like, I think that's the biggest thing that I feel like for men is that, and even in Christianity, is for so long we've been sold a lie about what it is and what it feels like and what it's supposed to be.
If I could jump in, I do think that, just as if I were like to sit down with like my little brother, and as he's going through the world of dating, I would really recommend to him, like, man, like there needs to be an ends to him. Like, there needs to be a whatever, ends to a means to an end. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Means to an end. So like, they're if you were thinking about pursuing somebody, or being in a relationship with somebody, being intimate with somebody, like the first thing that I would suggest is like there needs to be a means to an end. Inevitably, you know, what I would steer him to is like, is this a person that you would intend to be married to, like to form a covenant with? More particularly, like, is this somebody? So like, and so I think as we navigate this kind of like idea of dating, like, you know, I feel like that might be an unspoken a lot of times. You're like, oh yeah, you should date because you want to marry. But like, there's some people that actually just don't think like that. And it's just like, no, I just want to casually date and meet whoever. But I do believe that like when you're in that world and when you kind of entertain that type of lifestyle of kind of being in one relationship out to the next, like there's a lot of not just baggage, but I do feel like there's a lot of emotional attachments that we're creating,
absolutely,
as we're going towards. I actually got this is one thing that I want to look at, Proverbs 4 chapter 23. So like I said, like, or I'm sorry, Proverbs 4 verse 23, like I said, the Bible doesn't have much context to dating specifically, but it talks a lot about relationships and how we should deal with ourselves and our own hearts. As a matter of fact, this specific verse, it says, keep your hearts with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life. And so as we're entering into different relationships and we're entering into different soul ties, if I'd say, like, we are exposing our heart to several emotional attachments or intimate attachments, relational attachments. And if the Bible tells us that we should keep our heart with all vigilance, that means I have to be very selective with who I allow to be attached to my heart. And I think that's something very wise as we walk through this world of biblical masculinity and a biblical lens on dating. And I do think one of the wisest things would be that means to an end. Okay, I'm gonna hop into this thing with a means to an end. So if I'm entertaining this relationship, I'm gonna make sure I guard my heart through it. And the way that I do that is I have to think through the filter of, is this a person that I would spend the rest of my life with? And then so now how do I steward that all the way to the finish line? And I think that's just for me, that's a good place to start off for anybody that's just in the world of dating that's trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that if we're talking about like doing it well, man, I love that. Like the emotional baggage is real. That is real, man. Because we're created for community. Yeah. Like we're created for a relationship. That's why dating is so hard, because I want this, but this ain't it. I don't care it's it. I want to make it a fit. It's because I'm feeling a void. So it's how do I? And I love what you're saying, man. You know, like I think we need to be aware and be vigilant of our hearts. And a part of how we do that is prayer. Like we have to be very prayerful as we're entering into these situations with a means to an end, or an understanding of where I'm going, what that looks like, and how that goes. So I think for you, Derek, like, man, we just kind of want to hear your heart of, like, you know, what has that been like for you, man? Like, how's it been for you navigating, you know, okay, I do not operate as the world operates. I am not out here casually dating. I'm not casually looking for a fling or for a hookup. For all the guys that are struggling with that, you know, I feel like there are so many guys who are like, man, you know, I've never seen it. I never had a dad who was able to teach me this. I grew up in a house full of women, or either I just had bad examples. How do men embrace what it means to date with the means to an end, knowing that, okay, I'm living for courtship, I'm living for something bigger? How has that looked in your life, man?
I am not the source of advice, so I'd say go get you somebody that has been married for a long time, that is realistic about this journey. So I would put that out there first. But I would say, you know, for me, one thing that's important to me is obviously being glued into what God is speaking into my life, like regularly. I'd say this is a season where it's clear that my time is dedicated to serving the people that, like, He's put me in a position with the skills and the time to serve. Because I think a lot of men will sacrifice what they're passionate about or what they love or what they enjoy to go over here to partake with, you know, something that a girl may be doing already. He's willing to give up the good things in his life to go and settle for. And she may be doing great things too, but I would say God is not going to pull us from the path where we're serving Him. I think that's something that you got to remember when you're dating is He's not going to pull you out of godly good things happening in a community. So if for instance, you know, I get to go to college campuses like Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday,
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, Friday. You know, well, I was gonna say I go to the athletic events too. You know, It would not be a call from God for him to pull me out of those things and start dating somebody over here just to pursue that. Like, I just don't believe that that's what it would be. Rather, these two are going to come together in an unforced way to serve God together. And we may be in kind of separate worlds, but, and God may give you the opportunity to open up a new door for you to go and serve. But as far as like a man giving up where he's serving to go and settle with a girl just to be with her, I would say that's just not something that's probably not the character of God. He's going to continue to use you to serve, even if it is in a new spot. So, and then also I think the more, man, this was it this morning. We talked about repentance heavily this morning, and transparency and what's the authenticity? Transparency and authenticity, two different things. We were talking about being like naked and ashamed, like in front of God, where that is full transparency. Like there are rooms that men can be in where it's full transparency, and then there are some that are more just authenticity. I'm going to extend the truth, but you don't have a full glimpse of the look of who, because there are special people who are dedicated to that. So I'd say this journey to date and to marry and to find the wife that God is going to use both of you to serve, like this is going to happen through the community that you have as well. It's not an isolated island where you're going to find love. It's going to be with your brothers and sisters supporting you in that. And you as the friend, there's dating happening around you too. And you got two options. You can step in and continue to serve those people and continue to put them in godly opportunities and accountability. Or you can be sad that, they got lucky. They got lucky with the relationship. I'm still waiting on mine. I'm just going to go do my thing over here. Like that's a thought from the enemy that will isolate you and retract you into old sin that you don't want to be in. You talked about Galatians 5:24. I'll dial it back to 5:17, where it says the flesh wants the evil desires of the world and the spirit wants the things that are good. And these two are at war constantly. Yeah. Where it says these two are fighting each other every day in my version. And so we got to recognize like where we might be distracted by our own flesh, because those are not going to lead to godly relationships, not going to lead to godly dating. Yeah. And so I am in a season of identifying those things so that I can, when I see the opportunity that God has really blessed me with, I can step in full head of confidence, full heart of confidence, ready to serve God together with that person. So, I don't know. That's probably, that's where we're at right now, which has no timetable on that journey, which is hard because, I would love to feel fully confident to step into a relationship right now. But I know that God is just refining and refining and refining. And I have always been that person. People have got me on this so much. I have always been that person that's like, the timing is not right for me, or it doesn't look like the timing is right for them to go and pursue. I'm learning more and more that the timing will never be right. And sometimes an act of boldness is what will spur on a really great relationship too. I've seen that with many people. And I myself have to believe that. So you're getting the full transparency today, because it's not, because I don't have the answers, which I wish I did. But I do know, walking in relationship with other guys and even a community of really godly girls of one, my personal, this is probably not necessarily biblical, but my personal preference of pursuing somebody is through friendship first. I want to make sure that we've got just real good compatibility, really good chemistry from a friend level. Because if I've seen you at the friend level, it means I know just about everything. You're not trying to impress me. You're not trying to show me the flashy things of what you can do or where you're at or what you have. You're just yourself. And I enjoy getting to know people just for who they are, not anything that they can offer me. And I don't want to do the same thing. I don't want to try and put on a show to impress somebody, to make them think that I'm somebody that I may not be or I'm closely related to, but rather just that they know who I am, and that's the full transparency. And then being able to chance to be like, all right, I love every quality about this person. I can feel the chemistry in our relationship. They are worth pursuing. So sometimes those people come into the picture and you start to think, all right, where's my action now? am I supposed to take action? God, would you make it clear that there's action to be taken? Because I've prayed that many times of like, God, open this door. I'm ready. And then it doesn't open. And you can tell I'm forcing
that thing
this.
be silent, boy. So, you'd be like, hey, hey.
You get that last message, God?
Especially, I've spent seasons where I've completely devoted time. I'm like, I'm just going to wait for this door to open. Because I just believe so much that it can. And you wait and you wait and wait. And God just kind of like getting you gut punches over and over of like, why are you're waiting? Yeah. You're following me in the wait for her. You're not following me in to just find me and seek me. Yeah. I've been punched in the face so many times.
You just punched me.
I'm waking up reading my Bible so that I can think like, this is going to impress her one day. Yeah. The knowledge of the scripture is going to impress her. Like, I mean, us as guys, I wouldn't say we're not too bright a lot of the times, and sometimes that's the way we think. And God just wants us to want Him, not want Him because we could get somebody because of it. He's not secondary, and He's not like, a piece of the equation. He is the equation, and then He's going to bring the other pieces to it that make it more complete. So
I love that. While we're on that, bro, I want you to hit this piece, like, because I feel like we're on to something. Like you're talking about just in this walk, okay, discerning between the flesh and the spirit, and just how, and then the connecting piece being hearing the voice of God. So, bro, I kind of want you to tap on that, just like for the men who are trying to figure out what is the difference between my flesh and the spirit, because I don't know, and I feel something, but I don't know if it's Him. And how do I hear His voice in that?
For sure. I'll start off by saying this, man. Like God's voice will always sound like His word, and so one, like we definitely have to continue to hear from His word and to go to His word constantly, so that we can better discern what His Spirit's trying to say to us, like what He's downloading to us at the moment, and then two, I'll say this, I do think that in order for us to practice leaning into the Spirit more and listening to his voice more, rather than kind of going and living from our flesh, man, I really do think a good spiritual practice, and this would be great for men to fast, to have time where they intentionally, set themselves apart from, physical, natural cravings, and spend more time with God and just reading and connecting with Him and praying and talking to God and communing with Him. And so, like that would be something I would say that helps with discerning and hearing the voice of God more. But like ultimately, like, man, and another thing that I would say is that you have to, like you mentioned, you have to do this thing in community, because sometimes, like the Bible tells us that our hearts are deceitful and they have all types of wickedness, and so we can't just depend on our heart, because like shoot, Lord have mercy. There be sometimes I'll be like, man, this is God, and somebody be like, man, that's a dumb idea. Don't do that. But like I need to have that. I need to constantly put that out there in the voice of community, and allow people to talk through. The Bible tells us that, there's wisdom that's found in a multitude of counsel. And I think that sometimes we try to get so spiritual, be like, oh, I heard from God. And like, I just like, man, I put people in your life that could have told you that was a boneheaded decision. And I think that, a lot of times in the world of dating, people don't submit those types of relationships or those types of feelings. Like they solely base their decision making off of like, oh man, I feel great about this girl. I feel great about this person, or, she checks off all the boxes, so I'm gonna just pursue. But like really, like it is more helpful when you submit those thoughts in that relationship and those ideas to other brothers or other people that you can trust that are godly, so that they can speak into it. Be like, hey man, you need somebody to tell you that you're just not ready yet. Like there's some things in your life that you need to work on, or hey, like why don't you just slow down? You just met this person, you probably shouldn't get like, so like I feel like a lot of times people will, especially in the context of dating and just wanting to be with that person, because sometimes, like you mentioned, you just get tired of waiting, and like and sometimes when you're tired, you make bad decisions, and so you need people to lean on when you are tired so that they can help coach you and talk you through some of these decisions that might be irrational.
Yeah, that's good.
Because one of the questions is that every man's going to have to himself, am I willing to do the hard thing? Because the hard thing is doing a godly life.
Yeah.
Doing the easy thing is choosing the kind of the things that you prefer or you desire or whatever, like Galatians, even right in the middle of that, Galatians 5:17 says, when you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, division. I mean, he keeps going. Envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins. Like the results are, he says, clear when we choose the way that we want to do things or how we would feel comfortable. But God says, no, I've got something way higher for you. Yeah. So like when you're tired, when you're exhausted, when you don't want to choose the Spirit like you were getting at, like it leads to things that aren't of God.
Yeah.
They're not of the Spirit. They're of the flesh. And Paul writes it really, really clearly. But what's cool is like when we choose God, we choose the Spirit, we produce something else. Yeah. We produce the fruit of the Spirit, which is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, self-control, and gentleness. So,
come on.
I mean, like your relationships should exemplify fruit of the Spirit. And if I think this is a piece of us sanctifying, but we got to identify where we are strong and where we're weak. Yeah. Because if we've got the fruit of the Spirit, that means we've got those seeds, which means some of them may need watering to grow. Yep. Some of them may be growing a lot because we're watering those more, but we need a chance to water all of those so that we can experience the fullness of relationship with people. Because outside of everything that you're talking about, outside of God's design of this relationship, like we do start to experience this hostility, this tension, this I want, I need, selfishness, bitterness is a tough one. Like, they're far too common, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even in myself.
and with all of this, like, this takes humility. Like this takes, because I've been on both sides of it. I've been on the side of it where something is taking me out of the will of God. And I've also been on the other side where, we're walking, we're discipling brothers, and it has taken them away. And like, it takes humility to hear, hey, this is dumb. Please stop doing it. And like God will send people in your life to be as gentle or as stern as they need to be in love. Yeah. And I believe that, when you're talking about inevitably, again, understand the difference between my flesh and my spirit, hearing the voice of God, all of this starts with humility. Are you okay with being wrong? Are you okay with seeing that this might not be the right way or the right path? Do you want your preference or do you want God's purpose for your life? And that's a sobering question. Yeah, that's a sobering question when you got a world that is enticing you to every pleasure that it can offer. Right.
So what do you guys think about? So now a person is stepping into a relationship or stepping into, now they're seeing somebody, courtship. How do you, like, what would you think, or what was your take on somebody courting, dating? How should they steward that? Yeah. What does that look like, or what are your thoughts?
This has been a big disappointment of mine, not because I'm disappointed in them, but disappointed in the whole response. I've watched a lot of people start dating and they just kind of disappear. Yeah. Not that they don't have community, but like they kind of do dissipate out of your lives because it's like, oh, I had time for friends and now I'm gonna take that time over here and spend it on them. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it does isolate you more. It kind of focuses your attention on one thing more, when I think inviting people into it. I'm lucky because I got amazing friends, and even them getting into relationships, they've been rather invitational for like, hey, we want you to, we still want to invite you to stuff, be a part of this, because like you were saying earlier, you build us up. Like you're not somebody that kind of complains or anything while you're with us, but rather like that community has to consistently be a part of a relationship, because outside of it, you do get to some of these, you start to go on like decision making, overload, where you're making decisions for what you think is best. And I think like where you're talking about friends speaking into the life of other friends and the Spirit working together in unity, this is a space where you're going to be able to hear really clearly what you should do. And inviting, I'd say for the men, can't speak on behalf of the women, but it's kind of the equal here. But like there should be an invitation of somebody that is in the midst of that relationship, very deeply. That's an area where with one relationship I've done very poorly, where it's secrets. I'm keeping secrets. I'm keeping sin away from from the person that I said I would be accountable to. And then there's times where I've been like, hey man, I failed again. I failed again. But like, because of my flesh fails, it starts to sanctify over and over and over. And we're walking more godly steps together, through the relationship. But just because of that, like truth has to be spoken over a relationship for it to continue to flourish.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Truth has to be spoken over a relationship for it to continue to flourish.
That's good.
100%.
Well, you
that
coming
is the fertilizer. Truth is the fertilizer. That's what that sounds like.
You coming on here throwing touchdowns.
Listen, yo. But for real, though, like, and so like, just kind of even going into that, like, I think just from my personal experience, because like you said, you had a relationship where, you had, secrets and sin that you were keeping. I've experienced that same thing similarly. I actually had a person, that was older and more mature and told me like, hey, you should not be with this person. And I did it anyway. And it inevitably led to secrets and sin and just falling and just complete, like just a terrible relationship. However, like I've seen that, throughout this, throughout me meeting my wife and handling that relationship so much differently and keeping somebody else in our relationship that can speak into it and holding us accountable. And that my relationship flourished with her, but that's because we had somebody else in the midst speaking truth into it. And so I definitely agree, man. Like keeping somebody, because I think the temptation is like when you finally get your boo, when you finally get your bae, let me just go ahead, like we're gonna do this together and we're gonna start doing and we're gonna take trips together. And honestly, that's another thing too. Like I do think that there is so one boundary, like as me and my wife started dating, was that like, man, we couldn't be alone in rooms together. Like we couldn't, like the door couldn't be closed and we couldn't just be in the couch. We couldn't be in a house alone together. Just because like, one, you got to know yourself.
I know me,
and you got to know what is the area that you will fall in, and fortunately both of us had wisdom about ourselves and understanding about ourselves that this is not something that we should be doing, because like one, inevitably, like that just if you're not careful, that leads to fornication and crossing boundaries and just really like once again going into your flesh. But even more than that, I do feel like there was a wisdom in that, saying that like, man, I want to treat this thing as something sacred enough, because I believe that you are going to be a person that I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. So therefore, I want to honor God with this relationship. I think the temptation is when I get my bae, we do our thing and we love each other and we're hanging out with each other, but like we can't forget that like, man, whatever you eat or whatever you drink, do it all to the glory of God. So whatever you eat, whatever you date, whoever you date, do it all for the glory of God. And so just moving in a relationship, or like as you're in your relationship, moving in that relationship in a way such as I want to honor God with this person, because technically she's my sister in Christ right now. So like, let me honor my sister in Christ. Let me honor my brother in Christ, this person that I'm in this relationship with. Yeah,
I love that, man. I love that. We're talking accountability, honoring God. And I can speak to both of those too, bro. Just accountability. I can. It's been so many times over the years. We talk about this all the time. Where I can think of a situation here very recently. Where really liked this person and really just kind of submitted it to Amahd and to some other folks around him, and he was like, nah, that was good. No. And that stings. When it's been a while, you like, you sure? Because I got 4 eyes. I ain't got the other 2 on right now, but I got 4 of them.
But if you don't have that, I think, man, nobody loves a breakup, but I think it is God using these relationships to refine not only what we're looking for, but ourselves too. Because I look at dating as this funnel. You're gonna. I think dating is a part of God refining us as people, because he's going to show us like, these are the relationships that are tough, and these are the relationships where you're weak. These are the relationships where you're strong. These are relationships where you're empathetic. You know, he's going to show you both sides of the coin if you do continue to date. Not saying all of those are going to work out, because he's got, you know, the sovereignty of it. But like, I look at this funnel where it's like, he's just chiseling this me all the way down, and chiseling this person that like he wants me to be with, that's going to go and not only like do great things together, but just we're going to be really compatible to serve him together. And so I kind of look at it that way, because, and just the realm of dating, like when you date godly, this is what's weird in friend groups. You can tell what happens, like, and I've been a part of it too, but when people date godly and they break up, they can be friends and they can stay in the community and things are okay. Like, not saying they're perfect, but like, you know, like, it's great. But when people don't date godly and they break up, communities are destroyed.
Wrecked.
And we've all seen a lot of that in breakups, because I would say this is just the worldly dating. Worldly dating is obviously much more sinful than holy, but because we're a small number of Christians, but even Christians engage but you know, luckily we have a Father that kind of perfects us through that. But yeah, that's kind of a tough part about the community that you do have, and that's why I pursue the friendship relationships personally, is because I'm like, if it doesn't work out, I know I'm going to date this person in a godly way. If it doesn't work out, I don't want to ruin this friend group or the friends that they have, or I don't want to affect that at all. I think my hard part for me is trying to set the expectations on what's going to happen in this relationship before I even take a step at pursuing it. That's a tough one for me personally.
I love that.
I feel like you said something earlier that like I found really interesting. Like you know, as you were saying that like the person that, you know, like you've seen it, we've all seen it, but the person that you inevitably get in a relationship with or start dating, they shouldn't pull you away from like the godly commission that you already had. What in some way, some sort, like almost complement that or come alongside you at some point, whether it's marriage or whatever. You know, I do think that. Once again, I think that's one of those kind of filters that, you know, as people are dating or looking for a spouse or whatever the case is, I think that is a good filter. Like, hey, like, is this person, like, are they compatible for, you know, the call that I got on my life? Like, they might not have to do everything or have all the same skill set of you, but like, and is this a person that's going to, you know, push me and help me, you know, go towards the call that God has for my life, or is this somebody that's going to pull that away from me? And I do think that there's wisdom in that, simply because like this point of scripture doesn't specifically deal with like with dating or a relationship intimately, but you know, I just think of Jesus when, you know, Jesus is met by, I believe it's Mary, and Lazarus has died, or he's about to die, and she's just like, hey, like, you need to come on, like you know, he's about to die, we got something to do over here. But Jesus was like standing on 10 toes. He's like, oh, I'll get there when I get there. Like, I got something going on right now. Like this, I'm present right now. And so like I look at that in the sense of like, man, how Jesus, if we're gonna model Jesus, like not being a, you know, and we could say like, oh, it's the opposite sex trying to put, but I would say that like for a lot of guys, you know, when the opposite sex comes into comes into your sphere, for some reason, many reasons, we have the ability to be swayed away from the direction that we're in. And just looking at the life of Jesus, how he just kind of like Mary came into him, told him about this need, and he says like, all right, cool, I'll get to it, but like right now I'm doing something. There's something that I'm presently being a part of, and then eventually he got to it. But just looking at that and just knowing that that as we are seeking relationships, as we're seeking partners, like it shouldn't be somebody that pulls us away from what God presently has us doing right now, versus somewhere along the way, they should be able to complement that or to come alongside you in some capacity.
I love that. Let's make it even more practical for the folks who are looking. Like, I feel like we've been able to give a great overview. Like, let's talk red flags. Like, let's just make it super practical. Like, what are the things that are red flags?
Don't wash your feet. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
Red flag.
Flag on the play. What you got, dude?
Red flags. I mean, but that's so you gotta take your own preferences out of it a little bit. But I mean, you should be dating somebody that is involved in either your personal church or a church elsewhere. And obviously,
100%.
we haven't really talked anything about long distance dating, but I mean, there's somewhere in there too. But yeah, pursuing God not only in thought and in heart, but also in action, like the local community is really plugged in. So I'm man, you talked about being an extrovert. Friends are like my thing. I love friends. I think God has gifted me with the ability to not only plug into a community really quickly, but also invite people in to form their own. So love community and love friendships, and I'm just lucky to have friends all over the country that I still like. God gives me a heart to keep in touch with them. So she got to have good friends.
Yeah,
that's good.
That are talking about the same things that we're talking about, holding her accountable. She's in a group that's diving deeper into the Word, and in a community. So if none of that exists, red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag. That's
Flag
good.
on the play.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I'm trying to think. For me, red flag for me. A red flag. It would even be more. I feel like Bible talks about how can two walk together unless they agree. And there will be disagreement. But I feel like if you are dealing with someone who struggles to apologize, like if they have a real challenge with self-awareness, being apologizing, like it makes it very hard. And I say this because we are living in a culture of people who have been traumatized, which means that inevitably our innate desire is to self-protect. So I want to self-protect against you hurting me or self-protect against whatever. So I think that, for me, red flags is, baby, you're not self-aware enough to apologize for what you're doing. That's a flag. You got to go. Yeah, I love you, but this not going to work. What you got, bro?
I'm trying to think. A red flag, I would say, during that time probably would have been, and I don't know why, but I feel like it's not basic, but I feel like it is basic. It's like if she doesn't have a prayer life, right, man? Like if you don't seek to have fellowship with God through prayer on your own, I believe that as we're seeing each other, like I think I was just telling somebody today, like, man, like you can't try to fix your spouse, you can't try to fix the other person. You have to trust the Holy Spirit in that person that will do. And so I have to love you. I gotta water that seed. I gotta pray for you. I gotta bless you, but I can't fix you.
Yeah.
And that's the job of the Holy Spirit. And so if she's not actively allowing the Holy Spirit to time for the Holy Spirit to come into her life and to speak to her and to refine or change or encourage whatever, but she's not making time for that, that is a red flag.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Come on.
Let's flip the coin. Let's answer. Well, and actually, I think this conversation is like, we may be talking to a male audience specifically on this very specific question.
Yeah.
For the women, what should they look for? What's a red flag in a guy that's not a biblical man, that's not following God in the right way? Like, how do we help our sisters out and say, don't follow this guy? Because we know men better than anybody. We don't. Yeah. A woman could say the same thing for us of like, oh, you didn't say this red flag and that and this really, whatever. Yeah. But for us, we do know our worst enemy. We do know our flesh. We do know where we failed and where we're weak. So what are those things that can be helpful for that audience to? That's a red flag. Like if a man has this, red flag. On the play.
I feel like I could go on a TED Talk. I'm trying to limit it down to just one.
Yeah.
Oh man,
yeah, for real.
That's good. I feel like so many different things, man. I'm like humility, intentionality, relationship with God. I mean, so like I would say, you have no business with any man who is not submitted to God. Like if his heart is not submitted to God, and that should be evident through his prayer life, through his decision making. It all should be filtered through this lens of where is God leading. It should be mission minded. So I would say, like for ladies, what's a red flag? If he's not mission minded, like if he is money motivated, if like what is moving him is the latest trend or how much money, or if you need to run. Sure. Like if he is on any of that, I want to build this to build my empire. If he starts that, book your ticket.
I think to double down on that too, like to like being mission minded, but like ladies, I would encourage you to throw a red flag if it's a passive man. And the reason I say that is and I feel like being like that passivity is is very subtle, because it might start off as like, oh, he's kind and he's just thoughtful or gentle, but like I would encourage you to look more into that, because all of a sudden, like now he just does, like now it all of a sudden turns into he's dismissive of your feelings, or he's dismissive of, you know, everything else, and he's just kind of like just taking care of it, so also prideful, like somebody who's prideful. I would say that's a red flag. But like I think that being a passive man, like I would definitely look behind the door behind that a little bit more, because I feel like you're gonna end up being more frustrated in the long run if you date a passive man.
Yeah.
This one just came to mind, but I think about, you know, we're modeling Jesus when we talk about a man to that you would follow, and Jesus was more interested in who he was present with than anything else. I mean, this guy is coming to save the world. He could have been consumed and concerned with anything else. Yeah. So I'd say if somebody is not just present with you, you're the most important thing, like at the dinner table or even just in a community. If this is something that's really difficult for me, if I'm having a conversation with somebody that I'm like, man, I really want to just talk to them, and they're like looking behind me and they're waiting for the next person that they're going to talk to, I've been like, that hurts. Like that does not feel good. And I'm like, I thought I was cool. Like, so if somebody can't be fully present with you, then their attention is elsewhere. And I would say don't spend a lot of time trying to pull that attention back to you, because you're never going to win. So I think that's one, because, you know, Jesus was extremely present no matter the pain, no matter what was going on around him, but he had enough time. Just with your example with Lazarus, I'll get there in 4 days after he's been dead, you know, because this is so important right now. I'll throw another stat out there. It's a red flag, and this is not something that women will be able to find in men, because men are extremely great at hiding this. But 76% of Christian men watch porn once per month.
That's where I was coming next.
At least once per month.
That's where I was coming next.
You're not going to be able to find that information, or you're not going to be able to see that within a person. And men will probably be like, oh, I've struggled with that in the past. But we're talking about the present, where 76% of Christian men are watching pornography at least once per month. And that's a really... Not to mention just the social medias that we're on. Like, I don't know how much that statistic categorizes there. I think it's more like searchable pornography, but be very careful. If a man is not willing to be honest about his sexual journey and the brokenness, because not saying everyone has dealt with it, but a large majority of men have experienced some sexual brokenness. If he's not willing to be honest about that, and you can tell he's, you know, sputtering or can't give you the full truth, then I would be very patient to pursue that guy. Let the truth come out of him, because this is a piece of men that does not want to be challenged, because it is the toughest one that we have to answer for. So that's a tough one. And I would say I hear a lot of women, like there's a lot of men in our group, like we have this constant conversation of just, you know, lustful thoughts. And it's very difficult in the world of social media, where it's on there.
Popping up.
Who you follow.
Didn't choose it. It's on the explore page. It's on your feed. It's people that you like, oh, I didn't know they dress that way, you know, whatever it is. And it works both ways. But I would say men and women are wired a little differently in this category, based on the way that we were made. We're not just equally going to each battle the sexual sin the same way. So I'd say that is one that is so hard to see in a person, because us men got really good at hiding it over time. So even since we were in middle school, when phones started to come out, and I'm not saying every man has this journey, but I would say there's a really large majority. And just that statistic alone, like at least once per month, 76% of Christian men can't give it up. So that's something that men are striving to be better at, and to overcome that sin. So I'd say you get a good chance to partner with men, and it's a great, once you start dating, once you're a couple months in or something like that, it's a really great question to say, hey, I know this is really personal, but tell me about this journey that you've had, and I'll tell you about mine. Because that's where you'll identify if a person is worth pursuing. If they can't give you a straight answer, then it's going to take a long time for them to overcome that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in asking that question and talking through each of you guys' like sexual brokenness prior or sexual history, because like at the same time, you want to be able to know, is this a person like, you know, like of course, like we're conformed and we're made into new creatures. Old things have passed away, but at the same time, like you want to be able to know, like, man, like, is this something that I can I can actively walk through with this person, whether they might be struggling with this still, or there's still remnants of the brokenness there. Like you really want to know. So like, i.e., like you would want to know if somebody had been abused. Or you would want to know if somebody had been, taken advantage of, molested, whatever the case is, because there is a certain level of baggage and brokenness that comes with that you would want to identify. Yes. Do I want to walk through this with you? Do I want, and you should have a say so. Yes, I want to take this on. Like, I want to walk through this with you. I know it's going to be hard. I know the intimacy might be a struggle for us because of this incident from the past, but you really want to know and have those conversations because, like, God forbid that, if you step into a covenant, you step into a marriage, and then things like this start coming out, then you find out there was a porn addiction, or then you find out that there was molestation that took place. Your option to walk away or walk through that with you is limited, just because like now we're in this covenant together. And so you want to be able to have these types of questions with people as you're journeying through dating and getting to know each other, so that you can discern, do I want to walk through this part of brokenness and through this part of your restoration or your healing process with you? Because it's okay to say no. It's okay to say, I think you're a great person. I think God's going to use you in your life, but this is just not something that I can walk through with you. Yeah. And it is completely okay.
That's okay.
But you should have the freedom to have that say so because you had this conversation.
Yeah, that's good. I would say, last one for me would be work ethic. Like if you are noticing he does not have a work ethic, you should run. Like it is not to say that he has to be a millionaire or this has to be like that. That can be discerned by case, whatever, that can be discerned case by case. But there is a serious challenge with a man. We're not dating potential. Like you shouldn't be dating potential. You should be dating someone who has progressed in purpose, right? So if he has a challenge with his work, he just don't like going, he lazy. Don't be with no lazy, no. Flag, run, run.
A lot of girls are thinking about the dad qualities as well, fatherly qualities, and somebody that's like, man, I think they find those attractive, especially as you get into, I don't know, you don't always think about that with like a person that's like right out of college. I think a lot of those couples are like gonna maybe date or maybe do a couple years of marriage and keep getting to know each other. But do you have the qualities that are going to shepherd children? That are going to guide them and lead them? Because in that same sermon that Vadi Bakum does, he talks about his son being the key person that he is discipling, that he's going to help be a part of the kingdom of God growing in this earth. He's not, because he talks about on the biblical manhood side, it's the 3 B's. It's the ball field, it's the bedroom, and it's the billfold. These are the things that characterize the status of a man on the world or on the earth. And he's like, in God's kingdom, it's not that at all. Yep. But this is how people will see us. This is how we will date. This is how we will choose the people that we want to be around, just because of this kind of experience. And so like he tries to draw it back, because a lot of them are like, oh, what about his sports experience? He could be he builds a great character and all this stuff. And he's like, a team is not going to be the key thing that brings more people to know Jesus. It's going to be me discipling him, who then goes and disciples more. So I'd say like that is a big piece of kind of what you were talking about is these men are going to have to not only have a really deep and thorough relationship with God, but it's got to be evident to the world, the friends, and the people in the communities that he's in. Because if he's just kind of like, oh, this guy's kind of random, but I like him, but you know nothing about him, and nobody has a testimony about his character, then you're really shooting in the dark there. You're blindfolded playing darts,
that's good. Ooh.
And you'll learn from it. This is the value of it. Like we will learn from our relationships, but you better be ready to experience pain if that's what you're willing to sign up for.
Sheesh.
Because we as humans in our nature are used to hurting people because of the things, and typically it's from the mouth, things that we say. This is not a characteristic of God and of his son, but this is a characteristic of us. And if we aren't walking like him, talking like him, people are gonna get hurt. And that's going to drive people away from trusting anyone ever again.
Yeah.
This is why a lot of people don't date now, is because they've had experiences that are traumatic, that they're not, it's not worth going through that again.
This is why people date of the opposite sex.
We're talking about trauma, you know, this is one, just a little testimony recently, and this is a piece of why God's kingdom is so important in the community, but there's 4 marriages in this that I'm a part of. I just know these people. They're in my network. 4 marriages. 3 of them, all of them in separation and on the verge of a divorce. Only one of them surrounds themselves with godly, manly community that's actively praying and seeking God to redeem. The other 3 are not. Those 3 are, if not already signed, heading as close as possible to a full separation. The one over here, redeemed, married, moved, have a baby on the way. So when you wrap yourself around a godly community that's actively praying for you, you're going to see God move in your relationships, in your marriage, in your dating relationship. So I'd say this is why the community is important, because we can't do it alone. We need God, but we need the people to intercede on our behalf too.
Oh, that's good.
So I'd say, you gotta find people that have really great community wrapped around them, because you're gonna find the best version of themselves in that too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. This has been a powerful episode. Derek, we appreciate you so much.
This is awesome. I'm glad that you guys do this. And listen, I am no advice on dating. Trust me, I'm trying to discover. But I think that's what's cool about a conversation. You don't have to have. I mean, we're trying to. You guys are trying to use this to stir on people and push them forward to stand firm in the faith, not in the world. And I think what would be really great after this is to get some ladies to talk about the exact same thing.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Because they're going to be like, this is so male dominated. Y'all don't know anything about women. I know. This is why I'm single. So if there's anybody at one of your churches that are single,
listen, y'all look out. Like part 2 of the dating conversation will be ladies.
Yeah, I think we should just let them run with it.
What do you mean?
Like, I think we should let Chandrae
just up
and get a circle of them and let them run.
Honestly, this is gonna sound.
You've seen those videos where all the ladies are at the table and they're like saying deep stuff. He was like, "If I never went up, he couldn't hold me down." That's what it's gonna look like.
It's gonna be that. I love it. Hey, be on the lookout for episode 6, part 2 with our ladies. We're talking dating. We love you so much. Thank you for tuning into the Full Circle Podcast. Pow.
Peace out.
Good stuff.
Hey, what's up, Circle Up fam? So glad that you were able to tune in today. I hope you were blessed by the conversation. Here's what you need to do. You need to make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share, do all the things. It's going to help us so much. And hey, you can actually check out the full conversation by clicking the link in the bio below. Peace out.